Hello and welcome to another English composition video with me, Jeff Sanger. Today we're going to talk about analytical writing. You're supposed to be doing analytical writing in your media bias analysis paper. So you've gone out and found two articles, one on the left and one on the right, about the same topic area in all sides. So it's important to remember. For example, I know there's a student who's writing about abortion. She found two different articles about abortion, one on the left leaning, one from a right leaning source. But you have to remember, the media bias analysis paper is not about abortion. It's about analyzing two different articles' depiction of what's going on, right? And looking for evidence of media bias in each of the articles. Let's talk about how to do that. I created an example here that I think will be helpful to you, because I know, like I always like to use the football example with writing. If you're going to learn how to throw a football effectively, you want to be able to see somebody else do it well so that you can emulate it. So what I've done here is I just copy pasted all of the assignment directions into an MLA formatted paper. Apologies if you're using APA. So the first thing I want to tell you is you can keep these headings in the paper if you want, where it says introduction, analyze first article, all those things in bold are the headings. You don't have to keep them in the paper. If you didn't, and what you've written so far, that's okay. But if you wanted to, you could. And the reason that I said that is it's a great way to make sure that you've done all the things that you're supposed to do in each section, right? Because like we keep saying, this is not a 5-paragraph essay. This is not some hokey paper where, you just tell me a bunch of things in the intro, then you give me a thesis, and then you try to prove why you're right. That is not what this paper is, right? You know that. You don't need me to tell you that. So let's talk about this. So here's the directions for the introduction. This is where you're giving background information that the reader needs to understand those two articles, right? And kind of what they're writing about and how they connect to one another, right? I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because there's already been other module materials devoted to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy that over there, right? Oh, I should have mentioned. So for this example here, what I'm going to use is I'm going to show you kind of what some of these things look like with that Mark Bernovich article from Fox News that you read a while back. I'm using that because you already read it. One moment. I said one moment when I just could have paused it. That was kind of silly. I just wanted to be able to show you this is the article we're talking about. You've already read this, right? I don't have time to go over this one and the WAPO one. They both have examples of media bias, but we're just going to demonstrate this one. I know that you're writing about a different topic, but the idea is if you see me doing this, then you're going to get a better idea of how to do it in your own paper. All right, so this is just the sample. All right. So that you remember. Okay. So we've already had lots of materials in the modules about informational writing, right? So I think we're good on that. Let's talk about what this looks like. So look, when you're working on your paper, I mean, have the directions in front of you. And if you've read those articles multiple times, it should come to you like pretty easily. Not easily, but it will come to you. Introduce article including title and author. Identify as left or right leaning. Okay, so essentially that's going to look something like this. Okay, so I'm identifying the article. Let me make this a little bigger for you. As right leaning. I gave his name and I gave the title. I went ahead and pointed out that it was an opinionated article. That's probably not a bad idea if you do that. Let the reader know if it's opinionated or news. Some of the ones in All Sides are also labeled as analysis. Okay. And I gave the reader kind of a feel for what is happening in the article. I didn't get real granular about what his argument is because I'm not summarizing the article here. I'm instead, what am I interested in? I'm interested in the types of media bias that are happening here. You can identify one or more. I'm just going to demonstrate how to work with one. You might only need one if you have a lot to say about it. Okay, so let's do this next thing. Identify a type of media bias present in the article. So of course you have to, this is linked in here. You got to go to that All Sides Types of Media Bias page. It's in the assignment directions too. Use that. Heck, I'll just show you. Use that to find an example of this in your article. Okay, and so the first step is to identify the type of media bias you're going to talk about. And so that's what I did right here. So one example of media bias that occurs in the article is sensationalism or emotionalism. And the reader says, what's that? Right? You have to explain it to them. And then but first you have to let them know, well, which passage do you mean? We don't want to talk about the article broadly. We want to know, which passage are you talking about? So you have to point to the specific place in the article where this bias is happening. And in order to do that, you're going to need, you guessed it, that's why we've been talking about this, a quote and proper in-text citation. If you're APA, add the date there, okay? Okay, so now we've identified which type of media bias it is. Where is it occurring? You're still not done because there's a lot more interesting stuff to do. Explain why the passage fits that criteria. Why is it that type of media bias and how might it impact readers? Okay. Okay. So move this over here so you can see it. So this could be, you could see this as a response to that prompt. What is this passage designed to do? That's what analysis is. It's explaining how things work. This passage is designed to attack Biden and thus discredit his administration. The use of the words radical, and I won't read it out loud to you. That's terrible. But I'm explaining what specific things in the passage are doing and why they meet the criteria for sensationalism and emotionalism, right? He's trying to raise the temperature and kind of get the reader emotional about this decision. And because it is an opinionated article, I also referenced the fallacies list that we shared with you from All Sides. And this is indeed, it's an appeal to emotion because he doesn't provide any evidence to support the existence of quote unquote radical bureaucrats that want to take your rights. Okay. And there's probably more you could say there. This is just an example. Okay, so we've done this. Explain which type of media bias is happening, how it might impact readers. Use the proper in-text citation. I did that. How does this reflect the target audience's concerns? Right? You have to be careful here. This is why I had you do the activity on personal bias. Because if you say something like, well, this is designed to fool, right-leaning readers because they're all misinformed because of Fox News. Like, if you do that, that's not analytical writing. That's you putting your own bias on the page. And I'll take points off for it because academic readers are not going to be impressed by that. Analysis is supposed to be as unbiased as possible. Similarly, because again, the Washington Post article has some bias of omission happening there for sure that we can talk about, as well as some appeals to fear. But same thing, when we're talking about why they put it there, we can't make these sweeping claims about how, liberals want to destroy individual rights, right? I mean, that's not fair either. And so again, that's why I want to give you the example, right? So that you can see an example of what it looks like to do that fairly. right? So here is an example. This part here speaks to what readers expect. When you think about the target audience for a Fox News article, it's right leaning. And so this is typical of the vast majority of conservatives and Republicans. They want smaller government and less regulation. And indeed, he appeals to those beliefs by drawing a connection between that and the vaccine mandates. And so he's being, strategic here, which is what people do in opinion articles, but there's some evidence of bias potentially, impacting what he's doing here. And so we're just talking about how that could affect the target audience. I apologize. There was a little bit more to say about what the passage is designed to do that I did not properly copy all the way over, right? But you can see here, and I'll share this, you'll be able to see this in the module materials as well, right? But again, we're explaining, introduce the article, explain what it is, which type of bias is happening, where is it happening, give us the passage, explain why it meets that criteria for that bias, explain to us what it is designed to do, why it's there, what is it doing, and then explain what impact does this have on the target audience. Okay. So again, this is just an example, but do you see, I mean, let's see how many words this is. I mean, it's 259 words. It's only 1,000-word paper, right? So if you have as much to say as I do, you might need only, one example of bias per article. It's up to you, but again, you have to be thorough here. There's quite a lot of different things that you have to do in each part of the assignment instructions. And indeed, what I just did up there, you've got to do with the second article as well, right? And then you've got to compare them. And then, of course, in the conclusion, please, please, please do not put summary in there. That is not what conclusions are for. I apologize if other instructors have tried to teach you that. It does not apply in any real world writing I have ever run into. Conclusions do what I'm asking you to do here. They kind of take a step back and reflect big picture on what you have found and offer, like it says here, some perspective on how this fits into broader issues. And of course, don't forget your works cited and references page. I don't want the video to get to be too long, so that's about all I'm going to say. I think this is a pretty decent example, even though I wrote it myself. I'm hoping one of you will write an amazing A paper and I can ask your permission to use it in a class in the future. That's all I've got. As always, message me if you have questions. I'm here to help. Take care and see you later.